Greece is not the only story around the world. That there's obviously a huge focus in London and Europe about Greece, but elsewhere there are lots of other things that people might worry about or think there are opportunities for. Asia's behaving very differently from perhaps what people expected earlier in the year. The whole outlook for US monetary policy, everyone seems to have forgotten about completely, but that's another big issue that's still out there.
I don't think everyone's forgotten about it. For instance, one of the calls from one of the managers was go long US dollar because you can't lose. Short term, if there's a problem with Greece, well, you've got the safety of the US dollar. Long term, you've got US Fed policies. So it's win-win short and long term.
Whenever I hear someone saying that you can't lose in a currency bet, I really worry quite a lot.
Right, so you don't think that there is a trade based on
I just think that currency views are pretty risky. Well, it's an absolute certainty it will do this. There's so many other things out there that could wreck that story.
I totally agree that there's a two-way bet around currencies, but when it comes to the US dollar, you've got a Fed that is looking to move this year, and some of the dialogue that's been coming through is that it's not just one move, it's two moves this year. If so...
On rates?
On interest rates. So if so, doesn't that unlock
Do you remember
a strong
back in January when the market was absolutely convinced that rates were going to go up in June, and June arrived, nothing happened with rates, and everyone just forgot about the fact that they were saying in January that rates were going to go up. I accept that people are talking about maybe one or two moves this year on the basis of some recent data, but what the really big surprise has been this year so far is that the data overall have been quite a lot weaker than had been expected. So you take the IMF's growth forecast at the beginning of this year for the US, it was 3.5%. Our latest forecast is 2.2%. So rather than sort of focusing on the fact that the Federal Reserve has the ambition of wanting to raise interest rates, which is clearly true, the key issue is not so much the ambition, but rather, do they get the opportunity to do it? And so far this year, the opportunity that people thought would be presented in June just hasn't materialised. There's a sort of big surprise about the weakness that's come through in the US.
Let me just wrap up by posing a question as well. I mean, it's clear that Greek assets are undervalued as they stand currently. But do you want to put your own money into them at this stage? There is a difference between investing and punting on listed assets. And to me, it looks a lot like punting right now, given that the fundamentals for Greece are not great. I mean, private equity is going to make money. Anybody in there who is looking at picking up on the privatizations will probably make money. But can you, sitting in your home in Crawley, trying to buy Greek bonds or equity over the internet, make money out of Greece? You better be brave.
With your first question, that it's clear that there's value there. I mean, value is in the eye of the beholder. There's such thing as a value trap where you think that there's value hidden there, but it's actually, there's nothing underlying the asset that you think it's worth. So, I don't know, I disagree with you.
Come on, look, we just mentioned a couple of stock names. A cement business. It's a cement business. It's going to have assets, it's going to have business, it's not going to go out of business, one suspects, because even as the economy is bad, there will be construction. It will take place. Homes will be repaired. Ultimately, there is a real economy underlying this story.
You've still got to deal with the Greek backdrop, though, and doing business in a Greek economy that it's simply not growing. And in terms of where you're borrowing money from, if it's domestically, then you've got to deal with higher borrowing costs.
But the big uncertainty really is that even if you might believe 80–90% of the time that Greece is going to stay in the euro, you've got that nagging uncertainty as to whether it's going to actually stay or it's going to actually fall out, and you have the introduction of drachma, in which case your asset might be worth something in drachma, but you've got huge currency uncertainty in the short term. So I think that's what's putting people off. It's not so much the nation of the business being a good or bad business, but rather the massive currency uncertainty that implicitly is within this big debate.